How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the channel. This is Big Day Dave, and this is Farm Sim Talk, a show where we get to talk to other creators here in the Farm Sim community. How's it going? I hope everybody's having a fantastic day so far. I already see several people out there in the chat there. I saw Dust Bunny, I saw Brady, Samuel, we got Ken and Nacho. How is everybody doing tonight? Hope you're having a great one so far. I am joined here tonight by AF Farms. AF, how are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing good. How are you?
I am fantastic, or as my father would say, finer than frog's hair.
Good to hear.
Oh man, we have a good one lined up here tonight. So before we get started though, do you want to let everybody know who you are and what it is that you do here in Farm Sim community?
Um, I'm AF. I do farm sim content just as a content creator. Trying to get into modding here a little bit, but for now, just content and that's pretty much it.
Excellent. And you want to let everybody know where we can find you?
You can find me at or AF Farms 1, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yep, that is correct. AF Farms 1 on YouTube. And also, we have that linked down in the description below, as well as your Discord, if I'm not mistaken. Let's
I think
see.
it should be down in there.
Correct. And then, do you want to give any shout outs before we get going?
I'd like to give a shout out to everybody who's kept me going, Cole Farms and Midwest Ag.
Excellent, excellent. All right, so let's go ahead and get going into our first segment here. This segment's called Digging Up Dirt. This is where we're going to get to know you a little bit more for who you are rather than your content creator side. So, my very first question is number one, do you have a job outside of the whole content creation sphere, or is this your full time gig?
I do some farm. I farm on our family farm, and that's my job.
Okay, so what kind of farm do y'all operate?
We do a grain farm here, pretty big operation, so they need the help.
Excellent, excellent. So,
Rabid Rob F.
oh,
has become a member.
Rabbit Rob, thank you so much. Greatly appreciate it. Is there any kind of particular grains that y'all focus on, or do you try to cycle them out every season?
So we will cycle out our corn and soybeans, and we do something kind of different that nobody else really does around here. We do seed corn. So he actually will he makes hybrids out of a male row and a female row, and they'll crossbreed. Pretty neat.
Oh, very nice. And then, I mean, what kind of jobs do you do around the farm? Do you actually like run all the equipment, or do you do other things around there?
I run the equipment pretty much most of the time.
Nice, excellent. And what kind of hobbies do you have besides playing farm sim? Do you hiking, fishing, any kind of sports?
Mainly baseball, hunting, fishing, that kind of stuff.
Who's your team?
Yankees.
Oh, a Yankees fan, eh? Okay, okay. What any particular reason why Yankees, or is just kind of a local fave?
Just kind of local. Always been my dad's favorite.
Oh, I gotcha, gotcha. I was kind of the same way. My dad was big in the Red Wings when I was younger, so I kind of took on his likes in that regard.
Yep.
So, do you like to read books or watch movies?
I like to play farm sim, pretty much.
Gotcha, gotcha. So, what would you say is one of your favorite things to do in Farm Sim?
Get on here with some buddies and just either mess around or play realistic, either one.
Okay. And then, do you like any particular kind of music?
Yeah, mainly just country music so is pretty much it.
Nice, nice. You have a favorite artist?
I don't actually.
Okay. Would you say that you're more into the more modern country, or do you have like like a general decades that you tend to listen to?
You know, it just depends on the day actually, what I'm gonna listen to.
I gotcha. And then, what would you say is kind of the more like obscure music that you listen to outside of like country music? Is there any kind of oddities that we might not have heard of before, or maybe something more local?
No, not really.
No, okay. And what about movies? Do you partake in any particular movies, or
Christmas movies,
okay? What's your favorite Christmas movie?
probably Christmas Vacation.
Oh, great movie. Um, oh goodness, Chevy Chase, great movie. Let's
Yeah.
see. So, what's your favorite part of that movie?
Well, the whole thing's pretty good.
It
I
is a great one.
I can't really say my favorite part.
Okay. And then, how did you become a content creator? Was there something kind of motivated you to become one?
No, I just decided one day that I was gonna try it, and I've kind of stuck with it.
Was there anybody that kind of influenced you, or it's like, hey, I've been watching so and so, and kind of led you down the path of creating content?
Nope, just thought about it one day and decided to do it.
Okay. And then, if content creation was no longer an option for you, let's say your computer blew up and you didn't have the funds to pick it back up right away or something like that, what would you consider doing after that?
Farm full time, just farm a lot.
Okay. Now, has it always been your dream to kind of be a content creator, or you just one day it's like I'm just gonna do this?
It was just one day I just decided I'm gonna try it and see how it works.
Okay. And then, what's something that you think that you're not very good at that others would disagree with?
Hmm, I don't know. Nobody really complains of anything that I'm bad with.
Okay, but
I'm
is there
not
anything
sure.
that you would consider yourself to be bad at?
Editing, not wanting to edit.
It does take a lot of time. It takes a lot of time. Then let me ask you this: what kind of family dynamic do you have at home? Do you have wife, kids, anything like that?
No, not at the moment. I'm just here by myself.
Okay. And then outside of working on the family farm, do you have any other responsibilities or anything like that?
No, not really. That's really my only thing that I do is either working on the family farm or doing content.
Okay. Then if you're working on the family farm and doing the content, is it do you find it kind of easy to find the time? Because I mean, being a farmer working on a farm, it's going to take up a huge bulk of time. Do you find it difficult to be able to create your content with what could be potentially a limiting amount of time?
It can be difficult at some points. The making the videos part is the easy part, and then when it comes to editing, that's the part that really finds that it's hard to find time.
Now, do you struggle with the motivation to edit, or are you just more um, that it's going to take so long to be able to get the final product that you want, and you just kind of don't want to slog through it?
I feel like it's a little bit of both. It's just it's hard sometimes to want to go up there and sit there for a couple hours and just edit.
For sure, for sure. So when you're creating your content and you're getting ready to edit and all that stuff, do you have something that's kind of already like laid out as to how you want it to look at the end, and kind of you're shooting for that, or are you just kind of, going with the flow and getting to that end point?
Kind of just going with the flow and getting to the end point. It seems to turn out better
Okay.
than if I try and force things.
No, and that makes total sense. Yeah, it's one of those that if you have something already kind of laid out in your mind, you tend to miss that target pretty easily. Do you like to travel?
You know what? I actually kind of just like to stay here where I have everything that I need.
Gotcha.
Traveling is not my number one thing.
Got it. So, would you consider yourself kind of introverted if you're kind of more wanting to be at the home and whatnot? Is that something that you would consider?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay. And have you done any traveling in the past or?
I've done a little bit, but I just find it more enjoyable just to stay at home and with the free time that I have to do one of the hobbies, because all the hobbies that I have I can do where I live.
Okay. And then let's say uh, let's say money was no object, right? So, what would you say would be like your ideal thing to do? You stated that you're not really big into traveling, so what would you say like would be your, let's say, ideal weekend?
Um, Go out, go fishing with some buddies and just have fun. Go camping.
Is there anything particular you try and get when you go fishing?
Um, it really just depends on where I am
Okay.
and the kind of day.
Do you mostly do freshwater fishing, or
Yeah, all freshwater.
have you ever been out to the ocean to do fishing out there?
No, I wish. That's one thing that if I were to travel, I feel like that's what I'd want to do, is to go saltwater fishing.
Well, I can make a recommendation for you. If you ever get the chance, go out to the Gulf of Mexico and do some fishing out there and go after what's called a gag grouper. And not only are they a ton of fun to catch, but they are delicious to eat.
Well, any fish can be delicious, just depends on how you cook it.
You know what? You are 100% on that one. What would you consider being your favorite way to cook them?
If it's like a walleye or a game fish, probably would rather fillet them. You get the, let's say it's like a catfish or something. I would just, I don't know what you'd call it, just gut it and cook it whole and then pick off of it.
Okay. You ever done any fire roasting before? Like actually cooked it over an open fire, like out camping and stuff?
Yep, sometimes when we go camping, we'll do that, and takes a little bit of time, but it's worth it.
Oh yeah, yeah, 100%. Another thing I can recommend doing if you ever get the opportunity. So I come from Michigan, and not too far from there is Canada. And up there in Canada, they do these they call them fly-in fishing trips, and they literally get you onto a plane, onto one of their little boat, planes. They take you out in the middle of nowhere. They drop you off with all your equipment, your fishing rods, and all that stuff, and they provide you with a boat, a motor, all the gasoline that you can, potentially even begin to muster, and then yeah, they just drop you off and they leave you out in the middle of nowhere, and you just go out and fish until your heart's content.
You know, that actually is one of my dreams, is to go out to Canada and just fish on like a remote island or a remote lake.
I tell you what, I would highly, highly recommend it. I did it when I was late teens, I think, maybe like 17, 18, somewhere in that ballpark, with my father and my cousin and his stepson at the time. And yeah, it was an absolute like picturesque dream kind of thing. There was no internet, no signal, no nothing. It would be out like deep in the woods. Everything's run off of propane, the fridge, the lights, everything. And it is just, if you're one of those people who just wants to be like, I want to be by myself, or I want to be out in the middle of nowhere with a close bunch of friends, that's the dream right there.
Yep,
So
it
what would
just
you,
seems so fun.
sorry, go ahead.
It just seems like it'd be so much fun to do.
Oh yeah, no, it's an absolute blast, and it's one of those, because nobody else is out there, nobody else is gonna just kind of stumble across you or anything like that. It's just it's an absolutely different world, And the one thing that really kind of caught me off guard is just how dark the nights are. It's a whole new level of darkness because you don't get the light pollution like you would, say out in towns or in cities and all that stuff. It is you can't hold your hand out in front of your face and be able to see it most nights.
Yeah.
So, what would you consider motivates or inspires you?
Probably, like I said, Midwest ag and coal farms. They probably motivate me the most out of anybody.
So you consider that they are kind of like the people that you would kind of look up to the most in the whole farm sim sphere?
Yeah, I would say so.
Is there anything in particular that kind of drew you to them, or is it just kind of by chance that you fell in with them?
I would say kind of just by chance. Got lucky, and yeah.
And how did you all first meet?
So I first met Cole was the first one that I met, and we met in a stream, or he came into my stream, he found it, and we talked for a little bit. Ended up talking in Discord and going into one of his multiplayer servers with him, and 3 days later, I get a DM from Midwest Ag asking if I want to join one of his series. So,
Oh, no, that's
and this
pretty
just kind
cool.
of went from there.
So do you all tend to collaborate a lot with each other, or?
Yeah, most of the time.
Okay. And then what is one thing that people would be generally surprised to find out about you?
Um, I actually, I'm not a super quiet person to my friends, but it seems like I am. Sometimes it can seem like it, but when I'm around the right kind of people, I'll be the one that talks the most.
Okay, so it's one of those that when you feel the most comfortable is when you're going to be the most outspoken.
Yep.
I gotcha. And then, what would you say is one of your biggest fears that keeps you up at night?
My biggest fear, probably losing the ones closest to me.
Gotcha, gotcha. That's definitely a hard one to go through. We'll definitely confirm on that one. Do you own any pets?
Yeah, I have a dog, and I love hanging out with him. Big
What kind
dog.
what kind of dog?
He's a Bernese Mountain Dog mixed with a black lab. So he has the colors of a black lab, but he is the size of a Bernese Mountain Dog. So he is huge.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's a big breed right there. Absolutely. What are some of your favorite things to do with them?
Go on long walks out here in the country. Just walk with him, play with him, take him
Awesome.
to the lake.
Is he a big lake dog?
Well, he doesn't like other dogs, but we'll take him to some like private creeks and private campgrounds and stuff where it's only like just us there. And yeah, he'll swim everywhere. Get all dirty.
Oh yeah, that's some of the most fun right there is to let them just go nuts out in the creeks, out in the lakes, and all that stuff, and just let them have a good old time. You get so much more fun out of seeing how much fun they're having. It's kind of like kids, you get the enjoyment of just watching them have fun.
Yeah.
So, what would you say is one of the coolest spots that you ever took them to?
Probably just just a little creek that flows, or it's a runoff creek that like runs out of a river. It's probably the coolest spot, and super nice spot, super nice place to fish. Just nobody's around there.
So it sounds like to me that you are definitely, built for the country, that you want to be, out in the middle of nowhere with not a whole lot of people. Um, how often would you say that you go out to, let's say, a big town or a city?
I would say probably once a month I'd go to a bigger city slash town.
Any particular reason, or just kind of, going to hang out?
Um, Going to go see if there's any where I am. A lot of the stores are in those bigger towns, so we don't have a bunch of like cool stores around here, so you got to go there sometimes just to get stuff that you want.
I gotcha. Yeah, that's kind of where I grew up too. It was a real small town. A couple, I think there was only like at the time maybe 1,000 or so people that lived in that immediate town, and yeah, you had to go about 30 minutes in any direction to be able to kind of get to anything of interest, kind of thing. So it was one of those where every once in a blue moon we had to buckle up and head on out to get anything of interest, kind of thing.
Yep.
So is only times that you tend to go out is when you like need something, or are you just going to like go to hang out and have some fun in the town?
It's most of the time if I'm going there to get something, I'll also hang out and have some fun while I'm there.
Hang out with some buddies out there?
Yep.
Nice, nice. So outside of the farming simulator community, we pretty much established like inside this community with Cole Farms and Midwest Ag. But who would you consider to be some of your favorite creators outside of the farm sim community?
What was that again?
So who would you consider to be some of your favorite creators outside of the farm sim community? Do you tend to absorb any sort of like content outside of farm sim?
Um, Outside of farm sim, yeah, I watch quite a bit of fishing stuff. Definitely a lot of fishing.
Anyone in
But
particular?
no, I'll just go stumble upon somebody and watch them a little bit, and then always just change up.
Do you watch them
There's
for? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
because there's so many of them out there. There's so many new options all the time.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, with YouTube and all the different applications that are out there right now, yeah, you get tons and tons of options, pretty much of any genre. So do you tend to watch them in order to just kind of be entertained, or are you kind of looking for tips and pointers? Like, what's your motivation to absorb their content?
Most of the time, it's a little bit of both. I'll learn from them as well as just enjoy the entertainment.
So, what would you say is the best catch that you've ever gotten from one of your fishing adventures?
Huh, Probably I would have to say um a wiper that I caught probably a month ago. I was just hanging out with my grandpa and almost took the pole in the water. It was pretty fun.
It's such a rush when you get the. I mean, you could be out there all day, and everything can change in a blink of an eye. You get that one hit, and you can tell right away it is just vastly different than anything that you felt up until that point. Um, yeah, it's tons and tons of fun. They say that a bad day of fishing is better than a good day of pretty much anything else. But would you say that you kind of subscribe to that? Rather be fishing than doing much of anything else?
Yeah, probably.
So, what would you say is your favorite fish to eat?
Probably a walleye. Can't beat that.
Walleye, some good eating, very good eating, real nice mild game fish. So,
Yeah, they're also really fun to catch.
oh yeah, absolute blast to catch. They put up a good fight.
Yep.
So, what would you say would be one of the oddest things that you've consumed in your life?
One of the oddest. Do you know what mountain oysters are?
I do.
Probably those.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And then, what's one of those things that you think, food wise, shouldn't be like on a menu or, be consumed, but when you try it, it just absolutely is like a game changer for you?
Mm. Um, Probably like a crab ragoon.
Ooh, okay. Okay. Yeah, they really like crab rangoons. Really, and this is just anything like the Chinese food can be so hit or miss. But when you find those, crab rangoons that are like done up right, oh man, they are darn near life altering.
Yeah.
So the reason that I asked that question is it just so happened today that I tried something that really shouldn't be a thing, like conceptually, but I tell you what, it changed me. I'm forever changed from this experience. My buddy came over today and decided that he wanted to cook for my wife and I, and he made burgers. And the burgers were amazing. They were absolutely some of the best I've had. But he made one burger, and he called it the Fudge Around and Find Out. And basically, think of a s'mores in burger form.
Huh.
So he took the burger, the actual meat, and he encased it inside of that he encased a chocolate bar. And inside the
Dean
chocolate,
Powell has
or
become a
after
member.
that, he cooked it off to where the chocolate was just starting to get a little, seeping out. It was almost like a Juicy Lucy kind of burger. And then he put a graham cracker and he took some marshmallow fluff and he cooked that off like with a blowtorch. So it just had that kind of nice little charred crust to it. Change your life. It'll absolutely change your life. Shouldn't work, but it does.
Really good.
Let's see. So, if you had a chance to meet any three people in the world from any part in history and current, past, whatever the case may be, who would they be and why?
Probably my great grandparents.
Okay, so just a strong kind of familial bond kind of thing.
Yeah, probably.
Kind of get a sense of where you came from.
Yep.
And would there be anybody else? We can count that as grandparents being one. Uh, you got two more slots.
Um, well, I'm a very big John Deere fan, so probably John Deere himself.
Okay.
And um, I don't know who would be the last person.
Okay. So I'll give you a little bit of opportunity to think about this one, but the reason I asked this question is that it really kind of offers an insight of the things or people that you kind of hold as a kind of dear and close to you. Obviously having the grandparents, that one makes total sense. John Deere, you being a fan, obviously again makes more sense. um so it kind of lets us as the individuals who are getting to know you here today a kind of deeper insight of what it is that you value. So,
Yeah.
do you have a third one, or do you want to go on to the next question?
Say go on to the next question. Can't think of one at the moment.
Okay. And then outside of the farm that you work at, have you had any other employments other than that?
No, not really. Just been working there since I was a kid and always stayed there.
Gotcha. Okay, so yeah, that would be your first job would be working on the farm then.
Yep.
Excellent, excellent. All right. Well, I don't have any other questions for this first segment here. So we're going to go ahead and close out this one. And we're going to go ahead and turn our sights onto the chat here. So I want to give a big shout out to Dust Bunny. Dust Bunny, thank you so much for gathering up these questions here for me. We got from Dust Bunny, what features do you like most in FS25?
The features that I probably like most is the ground deformation. Definitely, what they've kind of done to precision farming, the add-ons and stuff that they've added to it. And my last one would probably be the realism that the game is taken on.
And what would you consider to be like your most favorite play style? Do you just like to kind of get on and mess around, or are you like a hyper realistic kind of player?
Um, I'll do a little bit of both. It really just depends on what I'm feeling that night. Sometimes I just like to just build farms, and I'll just make a save game and just build a farm and delete the save game and do it over again.
Okay. And continuing on from Dust Bunny, we got other than Farm Sim, what other games, if any, do you play?
I play a little bit of MLB The Show, but other than that, it's really nothing other than Farm Sim.
And you get on to MLB The Show to play as the Yankees, or do you try to do? I think they call it what, Road to the Show is the kind of
Yeah.
create your own player.
Yeah, I pretty much just do Road to the Show, try and work my way up as fast as I can.
Okay. Do you ever get into like the so I don't play it personally, but my cousin, he absolutely adores that game. But he plays like things like Diamond Dynasty and um some of the kind of online features. You ever get into any of that stuff?
Not really. I kind of just enjoy just playing at my own pace.
Okay. And then who are your favorite farm sim creators uh, who are your favorite farm sim creators you have learned from? So we mentioned, Cole Farms earlier and Midwest Ag. Is there anybody else that you kind of pal around with to kind of do your stuff with?
Um, Not really. Everybody else, it just seems like I don't know. That's really the only people that I watch.
Gotcha. And Dustmate, thank you so much for sending in your questions. I greatly appreciate it. We got one from Miss Lisa. Lisa, thank you so much for your question. It says, which YouTubers do you watch all the time from? So we kind of asked that one earlier, but is there anybody specific that you tend to kind of come back to? You're mentioning the fishing channels that you watch. Anyone in particular that kind of stands out?
Not really. I'll watch anybody.
Gotcha, gotcha. Lisa, thank you so much for your question. I greatly appreciate it. Brady has a question that says, what is your favorite FS map of all time and why?
Currently, it's between two maps. Either Medicine Creek or Ray County, Missouri. Ray County, Missouri came out yesterday publicly. Played some testing versions of it. The adding of scripts that No Creek's put into this farm or that he's put into this map is crazy.
So for that specific map, because I'm not a PC player, I play on console. I do plan on making the leap one day, just unfortunately not at this moment. But what are some of the features on there that really kind of draw you to it?
First of all, the custom buildings that he's done. And most of these buildings that are on here, all customly made by him, scripted by him and everything. And then the skill that he has in making a map not too big, but have bigger fields into it, where you can do whatever you want.
Gotcha. So it's kind of a you know got the nice foundation, but it's able to be built on. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'd have to say.
Okay. Let's see. Brady, thank you so much. Greatly appreciate your question. We got one from Samuel. Samuel, thank you so much for your question. Says, well, do you watch any football by chance?
I do watch some football.
Do you watch mostly like NFL, NCAA?
Mostly college, probably, I'd have to say. I'll watch NFL here and there,
Do you have a particular
but
team that you go for college, or?
gotta stick with my home team, Nebraska. Gotta stay with them. They might not be the best, but
That's the
gotta
thing.
stick with them.
That's it exactly. They might not be the most winningest of teams. I'm unfortunately in that situation with hockey. You know, being a Detroit Red Wings fan, we've been very disappointed over the past several seasons. But you ride with them, you die together. So that's kind of how it works, right?
Yep.
So I think that's all the questions I have up until this point. Samuel, again, thank you so much for your question there. And let's go ahead and get into our second segment here. This one is called the Meat and Potatoes, emphasis on potatoes. This is kind of getting to know you more for your content creation side of things. So, one thing I have to ask is AF Farms. Now, it's one of those, does that stand for something in particular? Now, before you answer, if it's a name and you have not made that public, then please don't share it. But if it's something other than a name and you care to share it, feel free.
So, first of all, my name started out as American Farming, but now since I went to AF, it's kind of changed to it's first two initials of my last name, so it's kind of what it is now.
Okay. Okay. Nice. Nice. So it's kind of got it started with a more broad kind of meaning to you, and then kind of, became more personal as the time's gone.
Yes.
Excellent. Now, do you only produce farm sim content, or do you do any other kind of content?
At the moment, yes, I'm doing only farm sim and kind of feel like sticking that way. It's what I've built my channel off of.
Gotcha. And what kind of content do you create over on your channel? Do you do anything like let's plays, role plays, things like that, or do you do like live streaming?
I'll do live streaming here and there, but most of the time it's role plays with um like Cole Farms and Midwest Ag. We do multiplayer.
Okay. So you all just come up with like a kind of general like overall concept, and then you just kind of go from there, or?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Do you have any kind of like scripting for your content, or do you just kind of have a general view of where you want the episode to go and you kind of go from there?
Before we record, we'll talk about kind of what the plan is of what we want to do in that video, and then we just go from there. Let what happens happens.
I gotcha. And how long have you been creating content?
Um, just over a year now.
Okay. So we established that you kind of got into it because you just like almost wanted to see how it would go. Do you think that you're in like a really good spot at the moment? Like how do you think that you've kind of progressed, and how do you feel about your progression? Oop, as I sit here and beat up my microphone. How do you consider your progression to be so far?
I'm bigger than I ever thought I was gonna be, but it's still growing to this day, and I think it could still keep growing.
And would you consider success to be in the world of, content creation?
I really don't have any definition of success. It's just as long as my version of success is if it makes people happy and they want to keep watching and it makes their day to watch.
So at the end of the day, would you consider that you got into the kind of content creation sphere because you wanted to kind of entertain, or was it more for you just kind of wanting to do something?
I feel like it started out as me wanting to do something, and now it's kind of just for me to entertain,
I gotcha.
is what it's turned more into.
And let's see. Well, what would you consider be, or I'm sorry, what was one thing that you never expected when you started your channel? Some examples that I give are like a sense of community, any like unexpected backlash, things along those lines.
One thing that I never expected to was to make content with Midwest Ag or any creators. That was something I never expected.
And prior to you kind of meeting up and hooking up with them, did you consume their content at all, or was it just kind of at random that they just all kind of showed up on your radar?
I did actually. Yeah, I I've been watching Midwest Ag for quite a bit, and then I saw Cole show up in his videos, and I checked him out, and I've just been watching them, and Cole
So
just came into one of my streams and went from there.
So would you consider yourself like were you a little starstruck when Midwest kind of reached out to you and said, "Hey, why don't you come and join us?" kind of thing, or because you said you consumed his content prior to that. Um, was that something that kind of it's like whoa, like this guy that I watched for so long is now all of a sudden somebody who's like an integral role in my life?
Yeah, kind of, pretty much.
So, would you consider Farm Sim to be your favorite game, or would you have another one that's your favorite?
Farm Sim is definitely my number one game that I like to play. Just always fun time.
What specifically about Farm Sim do you consider to be like so good? Like, what is it that you get out of it for playing it?
It's just relaxing, just after a long day, just to come here, sit, and do what I love most.
So one of the things that I fell in love with is exactly what you kind of hit on, is that sense of relaxing. I'm 42 years old, and it was one of those where I've basically played every single kind of game that has come and gone. From shooter games to kind of like the fantasy role play games like Final Fantasy. Played like the little kind of throwaway games, pretty much anything, everything from every kind of genre kind of thing. And as I got older, it was one of those where um, I would kind of be getting like twitchy almost. Like I would get so worked up because, if I played like a Call of Duty, I'm sitting there trying to, just survive and trying to make my way out. If I played like a horror game, like a Resident Evil or something like that, I'd be extra stressed at the end of it because, it's that like jump scare horror kind of, rigmarole like that. If I played sports games, I'm always kind of jazzed up. It's like, oh man, I gotta win, gotta win kind of thing. Um, but when Farm Sim came on my radar, it was like a whole new world of wow, I don't have to be frustrated at the end of playing a game. I don't have to be angry that I made a mistake. I don't have to feel like my heart's going to leap out of my chest kind of thing. Um, would you would you say that that's kind of some of the things that you kind of enjoy about Farm Sim? Is that kind of sense of, okay, this is my next task and I know what to do after that kind of thing and not have to be like so amped up all the time? Is that kind of something that you find appealing to it?
Yeah, I'd have to say that. Just calming.
And like throughout your lifetime there, um, have you played other games that, like I mentioned before, like the Call of Duties, like the you mentioned MLB The Show. Um, has there been other games that you've kind of been into over the years?
I've been into some other sports games, but shooting games, not really. Like, it's kind of either a sports game or it's Farm Sim that I really play.
Okay. Okay. And then do you play on or do you play and record on a console or a PC Mac?
A PC I record and play on.
Okay. Which yeah, that makes sense because you mentioned a couple of maps earlier that I didn't recognize, so yeah, that would have made sense. Um so let's say for some reason you didn't have access to a computer, right? Would you be able to make the rollback to a console in order to continue on making content? So let's say you had a PC and a console currently. Um, would you be able to say if the PC died, would you be able to or willing to kind of do that kind of rollback to a console? Does that make sense?
I, yeah, I would try and just see how it goes from there. If it just becomes super hard, I would probably have to take a break until I can either get my computer fixed or figure something out.
So, how much of your day consists of you playing and making farm sim content?
Mainly just my nights. Most of my days are spent out in the field or irrigating or doing something.
So, walk us through one of your average days. Like, you get out of bed, let's say, early in the morning, and then pick us up from there.
Once I get out of bed, it's just get ready to go out to the farm, see what needs to be done, and once I get that done, I'll go from there. If I want to go home, I'll go home, and if I want to keep working and stuff, I'll go find something to do. I don't like to sit around and not be productive.
Okay. So, average day, what time would you say you get out of bed?
Probably about 5.
Ooh, that definitely sounds like the farm life. So,
Ye-
average day, what time would you say you wrap up?
Depends on the type of day and the season that we're in. If we're in harvest, it will be 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock night that we get done, and then got to move stuff back and make sure everything's ready for the next morning.
So you mentioned that the farm that you are at is a relatively large one. How many acreage, if you don't mind me asking?
A lot of what we do is rented. So if we're including that, it's probably close to 5,000 or more.
Wow. Wow, that's pretty massive. And you made mention that it was more of like grain harvesting. Like you mentioned corn and soybeans, and that you're doing kind of a hybrid corn thing. Um, which I unfortunately I'm not too familiar with, so I kind of have to nod and smile at that point. But if you had like the run of the farm, what's the one thing that you would want to do, whether it's the type of crop that you want to put in or something that you would kind of put your flavor to? What would that one thing be?
I probably wouldn't change everything. I kind of like how it is just doing grain. You don't have to worry about livestock or getting hay cut before it rains.
Okay, so you pretty much just keep going with what works and kind of go from there.
Yeah, it's worked for all this time.
I gotcha. And you said that you started making your content a little over a year ago. When did you start playing Farm Sim?
I started playing Farm Sim probably, I'd have to say, close to 8 years ago, maybe.
Okay, would that put you what in about the FS 17 days?
Yeah, about that.
Okay. So you kind of cut your teeth on 17. What would you consider be your favorite map for the year? So if you started in FS 17, what was your kind of go-to map in 17?
Hmm. Um, Probably UMRV.
UMRV? Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's one map that I consistently hear of. Uh, people speaking very, very highly of. What about 19? Do you have a favorite from 19?
Hmm. That's where it gets a little bit harder. Probably say I have to go UMRV again.
Okay, so you really appreciate the kind of renditions of that map?
Well, at that time, that was really the only thing that you kind of heard of. You didn't hear of all these other maps and that kind of stuff.
Okay. If you uh if you only had one mod that you could have on your system, what would that one mod be?
Ooh, that's a hard one. Probably Easy Dev.
Easy Dev? Okay. And that's the one where you can like fly and insert money and like different volumes, like you could fill a trailer and all that stuff. Is am I correct on that one?
Uh-huh. Yep.
Okay. And what would you consider to be your favorite part about Easy Dev?
Just the simpleness that it brings to a content creator. You can reach everything with the click of a button.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things that as a content creator, I can speak from personal experience and feel free to, mirror and or contradict any way you see fit. But you always look for those ways to make your content, the way that you want to, but being able to get through to the next thing, as fast as you possibly can, with as little headache as possible, kind of thing. Would you kind of agree to that?
Yeah, I would have to agree.
Yeah, because I know it's certainly really hard as a console gamer, because it's one of those where you have to you're very limited on the kinds of things that you can have. So it makes you really appreciate those mods, such as the mod from Chris S and Riley S. And I keep hitting my microphone, um, like Chris S and Riley S. The Colossus pack, things like that, to where you can get the harvesting for pretty much anything done super, super quickly, with as little issues as possible. And you can have that thing running around in the background, getting stuff done. And then you can just move on to the next task, kind of going from there. Um, what would you say is you mentioned John Deere is your favorite kind of manufacturer, correct?
Yes, definitely.
So what is it about John Deere that you really kind of, you know, hold in high regards?
Just have always my dad works at a store for John Deere and family's always used it. So, kind of just a thing where it's just been in my life or it's been in my life the entire time.
Okay. So it's one of those just kind of ingrained in you at an early age and you just kind of grew to appreciate it.
Yep.
Gotcha, gotcha. So you mentioned that your father works at a John Deere, you said like a distributor or a dealership?
Yes.
Okay. Um so with you all, operating a farm and doing all that stuff, you use John Deere's. Uh was there any kind of issues that you all ran into when John Deere decided to try to make a lot of the things very proprietary and in regards to like the repairs and stuff that you can do to your tractors and stuff? Was that at all kind of an effect on you, on the farm, on your family, things like that?
It's been a little difficult just at times, but you try not to let it affect you.
Okay. And what are some of the things that you have done around the farm in regards to like the machinery and stuff like that? So you may mention that you run some of the machinery. Do you do like pretty much anything around the farm? Do you like do the cultivating, the planting, all like pretty much everything, or
Anything that I needed to do.
okay? And then what would you say is your least favorite map in any of the iterations of Farm Sim that you have played up until this point?
Oh, that's a hard one. You know, there's really my least favorite map. I just really won't play on it, and I just kind of forget about it.
I
So I
gotcha.
really don't have an answer.
So one map that really kind of I will say it's my least favorite, and it's not because it was necessarily a bad map, but it was a one that was just a huge disappointment, in my opinion, because it had the potential to be amazing, in my opinion. It was one called Southern Cross. I think it was Southern Cross, Australia, maybe, but it was definitely Southern Cross. And it was a beautiful, gorgeous looking map, and it was based in Australia, like I mentioned. And it was just big open farmland, very unique kind of layout to it. But it was one of those where, unfortunately, when it was put onto the mod hub, and I believe this is back in 22, it had a lot of issues, a lot of errors with it. So what would happen is that if you were to go up to, let's say, one of the sell points over on the map, it was like this big grain industrial complex kind of thing. It had massive silos, massive storage systems, the whole 9 yards. Well, you'd go up to it, and from certain angles, everything would disappear. So it was like very intrusive into the gameplay itself. And unfortunately, it got loaded to the mod hub, and then nothing happened beyond it going to the mod hub. So it was a huge missed opportunity, and that's what really kind of bummed me out about it the most, is that it was just such a gorgeous map that just didn't get the love it needed afterwards. So that's always my example as my least favorite, because it was just such a disappointment.
Yeah, just some maps, they just don't turn out like how they're supposed to, and they come out with a lot of errors and they just don't get fixed.
Yep. Yep, exactly. So if you could pick any map throughout all of Farm Sim history that you've played up until this point to come to FS25, what would that map be?
Um, Medicine Creek.
Okay. And what about that map like really hits home for you that you'd want it to come to FS25 over all others?
Actually, kind of changed my answer.
Of course.
I would have to say, St. Edward, Nebraska,
Okay.
and it's just a nice map. Um, has hills where hills are needed. It's just super nice. Big map, represents Nebraska perfectly.
Okay, so is it one that kind of just strikes home for you, and that's kind of the reason why you would want to see it, or just that
Yeah,
it's just a really like a really gorgeous map, very accurate to the area kind of thing?
it's kind of both. It hits perfectly, and yeah, it's just perfect.
Okay, and then for Farming Simulator, it's been out for quite a while now, several months. And we basically got a slow drip of information when it came to when it was getting released and all that stuff. What was that one feature when everything was kind of, slowly being rolled out to us? What was that one feature that you were most looking forward to?
I would have to say the ground deformation for sure.
Okay. Now, even though, no, as far as I'm aware, and correct me if I'm wrong, previous iterations for PC players had that kind of ground deformation. Am I correct about that?
I really never noticed it as much as what I do now in 25, yet that could just be because I wasn't looking for it.
Well, I think it was a mod that you had to install, if I'm not mistaken. Um, So it might be one of those that just, maybe just never came onto the radar kind of thing. And again, I could be 100% wrong about that. So, nobody out there in the audience quote me on that one. But regardless, I mean, if it wasn't on your radar, it wasn't on your radar. That's totally fine. Um, so what would you say is the one feature that you were excited about, but when Farm Sim 25 came out, that you kind of soured on pretty quickly?
Um, ooh, um, rice, probably.
Okay, and what specifically about the rice that you kind of soured on?
It's just not worth it for the time that it takes.
I gotcha. And if you could come up with a wish list for Farm Sim 25 or a next iteration of Farm Sim, what would be the one thing that you would love to have added into the game?
Um, 4X map base game like represents the United States perfectly.
Okay.
Just more stuff from the US.
And what was your opinion on the Riverbend Springs map when that one came out?
Um, I thought it was gonna be a lot better than what it was. It was just super small, I felt.
Okay. Now, you being a PC player, or do you tend to stick with maps that are 4x maps, or do you not really care?
It really just depends on the detail of the map that is put into it. If there's a lot of detail, I will play any size of map, but 4X maps normally kind of what I play.
Okay. And would kind of the details be the one thing that you look for when you want to pick a map to play on, or is there some kind of other factor that you look for when choosing to play on a map?
Definitely the details.
Okay. Is there anything like in particular in the details that you tend to look for above all others, or?
Um, Farm details and town details and that kind of stuff.
Okay. So having kind of a decent amount of placeables or that kind of lived in feel, is that kind of a good way to describe it?
Yep,
Okay.
just laid out nicely.
And would you say that you prefer more of the American style maps, or does it not really matter to you?
Definitely the American style.
Okay. If you had to, would you play on a like a UK style with the tight, compact farms and fields, or is that one that you try to avoid?
Normally I try to avoid those, but if it has a bunch of hype in it and people are viewing it, I would consider it.
Okay. And then what style of farming do you prefer when playing? Do you like to do just arables, forestry, grass care? Which kind of thing do you prefer to do in game?
Um, I'll do a dairy or I'll do dairy farm, cattle farm, pig farm, or just a grain farm.
Okay. Do you tend to do any kind of forestry or anything like that?
No, I kind of try and stick away from that. I don't feel like it's worth it.
Okay. Even as like a winter job to kind of get through the long winter kind of thing, or do you just kind of skip over?
I kind of normally just skip over, do some tillage here and there, feed animals. Pretty
Okay.
much it.
And of the do you do any of the contracts there in game?
It depends on the kind of series that I'm doing. If it's like yeah, I'd say it really just depends on the series. If it's
Okay.
like a start from scratch, then I'll do some contracts. But if it's like I don't know, if it's like a farm where I have some money, I won't.
Okay. And then with those when those times where you do contracts and whatnot, what would you say is your favorite and least favorite contract to do?
Least favorite contract. I haven't done enough of them to kind of figure out my least favorite, but favorite one is probably harvesting.
Okay. And do you tend to, utilize the leftovers for your own personal use, or do you tend to just sell it off, right away to get that extra cash on hand?
Get the extra cash.
Yeah, I tend to do the same thing. It's one of those where, yeah, I could hang on to it and wait for the high point, but you know, this 10 grand contract's now 15 grand or 20 grand because I sold off all the additional crop that they gave me. So, it's kind of a short term gain, with a potential long term loss. But for me, it tends to work out, just fine. It just kind of cashing in right away.
Yeah.
So, as a content creator, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who was looking to get in this field?
You have to be ready to grind it out. Just stay consistent.
100%. Consistency is key. If you're not putting in the work, then you're not going to get any of the reward out. 100%.
Yep.
So, do you tend to try and do content every single day, kind of thing, kind of grind it out, 7 days a week, or do you go by a schedule or anything like that?
When I'm recording with people, I will normally record with a schedule. That way, it's just we know when we're going and we're ready.
Okay. And then, do you do content with like by yourself, or are you exclusively with the group of people that you're with?
I'll do both.
Okay.
Just depends on the map.
So when you're doing your series there by yourself, well, let me ask you this: do you run like separate series for those contents? So like you'll do a map where you're kind of by yourself, and then another map for the group kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And what map are you currently on with the group?
Ray County.
And what about by yourself?
Right now, I'm not currently doing anything by myself.
Okay. And what would you consider to be one of your most memorable moments in the content creation sphere so far?
Um, I really don't know.
Okay. And then how about you list us outside of Easy Dev? What are some of your favorite mods?
Um, any maps really? Anything that just makes farming simulator easier, more realistic. I don't know if you would consider Reshade a mod, but Reshade is definitely something that I use quite a bit.
Uh, Describe for us what Reshade is. I'm not familiar with that one.
It pretty much changes how your game looks. It will add shaders to it to make the game just look better, and you can control exactly how you want your lighting to look and stuff.
Okay. So it kind of gives you the finer behind the scenes details to make those kind of lighting tweaks. Is that kind of what I'm understanding?
Yep.
Okay. And any other favorite mods that you want to list out?
Nope, not really.
Okay. And then of the modders, which there are so many modders out there, is there a modder out there that when you see something from them come out, you're like, I gotta take a look at this one. Okay, something from Gaming Joy just came out. I'm gonna run out and go check that one out. Or oh hey, something from Lancy Boy, or something from X, Y, or Z. Is there anybody out there in particular where you see their name pop up, you've got to go out and at minimum take a look at it?
We've got 4 people. I have No Creek Farms, um, LJR Modding, CM Square Modding, and Antler 22 Modding and Mapping.
And what specifically kind of drew you to them?
Just the quality that they put out and stuff, the time that they put in.
Okay. And you mentioned earlier that there wasn't a kind of modder or creator or anything like that, that kind of, not a modder, I shouldn't have said that, a creator out there that kind of inspired you to kind of get into the farm sim content creation sphere, correct?
Nope. Nobody really inspired me.
Okay. And then if you had the ability to make a map of a real life place, where would that be based off of and why?
Would have to say Nebraska. Just
And
because it's where I'm from, it's close. Farming is Nebraska's thing.
and any particular location in Nebraska, or
I'd have to go somewhere where there's hills and that kind of stuff.
now if my geography is correct, and it's quite possible that's not, that'd likely be somewhere in the northeast of Nebraska. Is that
Yep.
kind of a fair assessment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Somewhere around there.
Okay. And let's see. I think, yeah, that's all the questions I have for this segment. So let me turn to the audience yet again to see if they have any questions. And let's see. I'm not seeing anything off the top. Let me just do a quick sweep through this just to make sure there's nothing outstanding. No, I think. Yeah, I think that's all the questions from the audience, and that's all the questions that I have for this segment. So that's going to lead us towards our third and final segment here, and that's called That's a Silage Wrap. This is where we're going to start closing out the interview and kind of going from there. So first off, I want to thank you so very much, AF Farms, for stopping by and doing the interview with me tonight. I had a absolute blast, as I always do on this show. Do you have any future plans or projects going forward?
Eventually here, I do want to start working on a map, but I'm not sure yet of when exactly I would like to do that, but soon.
So you made mention earlier that you were looking to get into the modding sphere. Is there anything that kind of is drawing you to it?
Just me wanting to make my own customized stuff. Just that's what I have to say. Just I want to try to do something that I've never done before to challenge myself.
So because you do play on PCs, um, have you ever gone into, let's say, the XML files and done editing of any sort of kind of base equipment, or do you tend to just not focus on that part of the PC gaming portion?
Yeah, I've done a little bit of that, and I also have done a little bit of like converting vehicles over and stuff.
Any vehicle in particular?
Just whatever catches my eye from 22 that I would like to be added, I'll throw it in.
Okay, so you have the ability to actually take like the old content from 22 and then pop it into 25. Am I understanding that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Was there a specific vehicle that you can think off the top of your head?
Something specific, I would have to say, not really. Just I've done a few of them, and I really can't remember everything that I've done.
Okay. And then what up until this point has stopped you from trying the map scene? You made mention that you'd like to try and make a map. What's kind of stopped you up until this point?
Just the time that it will take.
I gotcha. Yeah, I've heard, and I'm only reporting this like secondhand, but it takes tons and tons and tons of time. It's one of those that uh, with your busy schedule, working on the farm and then doing content at night, is there enough time in your day that you think that you'd be able to dedicate to be able to make a map, or is it one of those that you're just kind of playing it by ear to see if something may or may not open up?
I'm just kind of just thinking, and if the right time comes, I'm gonna give it a try.
Okay. And is that your kind of ambition is to when you do make a map, are you going to try and make one of the northeast of Nebraska, or are you going to try and kind of loosely base it off of it, or are you just going to do something from fantasy kind of thing?
I'll make one from a certain location.
Okay. Nice. Nice. That sounds awesome. And let's see. Let's see. Yeah, no, I don't have any other questions from the group. So you mentioned that your future plans, you're gonna try and go ahead and start to learn to be able to make maps and stuff like that. Is there anything upcoming for your channel by chance?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay. And can you remind us again where we can find you?
You can find me at AF Farms 1. Um, yeah, I think too, if you just look up American Farm or AF Farms, you should also be able to find me.
Excellent, excellent. And again, I want to thank you so very, very much for coming on here tonight. Had an absolute blast with you. Wow, got real tongue tied there. Had a real blast with you tonight, and had a load of fun. I hope you did too.
Yep, I did.
Excellent, excellent. Now, this is the time of the show where I turn to the audience and let you know that, hey, I don't know everybody out there. I know it's a shocker. It's absolutely shocking. I cannot possibly know all the creators out there, all the modders, all the map makers, all the farmers who have farming channels out there. But if you have a specific content creator, modder, map maker, etc., that you want to see on this show for me to interview, go ahead and leave your suggestions. Leave them in the chat, leave them in my socials, leave them on my Discord. Let me know who you'd like to see on this show, and I will do my absolute best to reach out to them and get them onto the show. Again, AF Farms, I want to thank you so very much for coming out here tonight. Had a real good time with you. And yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Yep, thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. So I will go ahead and play a sign off real quick if you can hold on until the end of it, and I'll catch you on the other side.
Yep.
All right. Again, I want to thank everybody who came out here tonight. I hope everybody had a fantastic time here tonight. If you did, please show them by liking, sharing, subscribing, following, commenting, doing all the things the algorithms enjoy you doing that shows you're engaged with this channel, enjoying the content. And that being said, I hope everybody has a fantastic day. Take care.